Snake venom works by binding to specific receptors in an animal's nervous system, which paralyzes the muscles and stops the heart. But a honey badger's receptors have physically mutated over millions of years. The shape of their nerve receptors has actually changed. The venom molecules physically cannot bind to the receptors. The venom just bounces off. Access denied. The badger passes out while its liver voluntarily filters the toxins out of its blood, and once the blood is clean, it just wakes up. So they're basically immune to venom and incredibly hard to kill. But if they just relied on brute force, they'd still get outsmarted by bigger predators. Are they actually just mindless berserkers? With all this screaming and fighting, you'd probably think they have a lot of anger issues. And to be fair, they do. But honey badgers are actually terrifyingly smart. They have massive brains for their size, and they're one of the few animals on Earth that actually use tools. If a honey badger wants to get into a bird's nest that's too high to reach, it'll find a log, drag the log over to a tree, and use it as a ladder. There's a famous honey badger in captivity named Stoffel. Wildlife rehabilitators put Stoffel into a completely walled-off concrete enclosure to keep him safe. Stoffel immediately figured out how to unlock the gate, so the keepers put a padlock on the gate. Stoffel then found a pile of rocks, rolled them into a corner, stacked them up, and climbed over the wall. So the keepers removed all the rocks. Stoffel then waited for it to rain, dug up mud from the ground, rolled the mud into sticky balls, stacked the mud balls against the wall, let them dry in the sun, and climbed over the wall again. Because of course he did. They're incredibly calculating, and will literally observe their environment just to exploit its weakness. So they're smart enough to break out of human prisons. But how does this all go back to actually helping you in a fistfight with a lion? When a honey badger is fighting an animal that's 10 times its size, they know exactly where their opponent is most vulnerable. When a badger is forced into a life or death fight with a larger predator, it will specifically target 2 areas on the predator's body. First, they go for the eyes. They know that if they can blind the predator has to stop fighting. Secondly, and much more brutally, they go for the groin. Yeah, ouch. There are multiple documented cases of honey badgers fighting large male lions, hyenas, and even buffalo, where the honey badger intentionally dives directly under the animal's back legs and uses its jaws to bite the animal's goods. The badger knows it cannot overpower a buffalo or a lion. It doesn't actually break the laws of physics, but it does go for the most unprotected nerve endings on the entire body. The sheer shock and agony of this attack will just make the larger animal want to leave the fight, so the badger is threatening the lion with permanent, life-altering damage. But from the lion's perspective, could this be worth the risk anyway? A meal is a meal, right? Well, look at the actual cost of this fight. In the wild, every single action requires calories. Every hunt is a gamble. If a lion chases a zebra and catches it, the lion burns 2,000 calories but gains 50,000 calories of meat. That is a massive payoff. Now look at the honey badger. A honey badger only weighs 30 pounds. Half of that weight is thick rubbery skin, dense bone and claws. There's barely any actual meat on the honey badger. So if a lion decides to fight a badger, the lion has to spend massive amounts of energy wrestling a creature that never gets tired. The lion has to endure getting sprayed with